So next up on the list is Mitch Haniger, and we're actually skipping a few players. We'll go back to them, but I want to do hitter, pitcher, or pitcher hitter is actually what we end up doing. We did post Emerson Hancock last night. That is for Mile Y enthusiasts only. $4.99 a month to join. I'd really appreciate your support. If you haven't done it yet, I appreciate everyone who has done it. Totally understand those of you who are not willing to do so, but I will again ask. It would really help me out and, support the channel. Support me by supporting the channel. But we're also skipping to Mitch Haniger because there's some fresh news to the surprise of absolutely no one whatsoever. Mitch Haniger opted in to his 2024 $15.5 million player option for 2025. I mean, it was the lock of locks. And we'll go over why it was the lock of locks starting right now. In 121 games this year, Mitch Haniger made 423 plate appearances and stunk. He hit 208, 286, 334. That's a 620 OPS. That is an OPS plus of 84. A reminder that you got to get up to 100 to be even average. 12 homers, 44 RBI if you're into that sort of thing. 0 stolen bases on 0 attempts. Efficient, very efficient. 40 walks and 126 strikeouts. Again, over 423 plate appearances and 380 at-bats. Let's go back to when the Mariners acquire Mitch Haniger. And it's the deal for Robbie Ray. And the Mariners get Haniger and they get Anthony DeSclafani. Anthony DeSclafani quickly moved in the Jorge Polanco trade. To say he did not make an impact with the Seattle Mariners is quite an understatement, because the guy they got from him also is no longer going to be a Seattle Mariner. The hope was that Mitch Haniger was going to be a platoon bat, a guy who platooned with a lefty and would crush left-handed pitching and stay healthy and, hit in the middle of the order when he's in the lineup because, he's shown the good pop. It's not that long ago that he hit 39 homers and had an 804 OPS. In his first couple of years with Seattle, he was one of the best outfielders in baseball. That is not hyperbole. He was a 6.5 WAR player in his second full year with Seattle. Really his first full year, because he was limited to 96 games the year before that. Mitch Haniger has had success in this league, and the hope was that his struggles in 2023 were injury-related, and of course, Mitch Haniger has dealt with injuries for a wide variety of, or not wide variety, a very large portion, of his years. And he did stay healthy. He just wasn't good. And the concerning thing here is we have to point out how bad he was in 2023. Remember I told you 208, 286, 334 in half as many games, but not a super small sample, 229 plate appearances. He hit 209, 266, 365. That's a 631 OPS. So a little bit higher on base percentage in 2024, a little bit higher slugging percentage in 2023, but otherwise pretty much just the same player. And that's over 180 games. That's a large sample. And if you take a look at the StatCast page, there's some good, but there's a lot of bad. Let's actually look at the good first. Average exit velocity in the 75th percentile, hard hit percentage in the 76th percentile, chase rate in the 78th percentile, and the walk rate in the 68th percentile. So you have to be pretty darn bad in your other stats in order to not be an effective hitter. Well, guess what? That's exactly what Mitch Haniger was, because he whiffed in 32.3% of his swings. He struck out in 29.8% of his at-bats. His expected batting average was 218, and his expected slugging percentage was in the 26th percentile, despite barreling the baseball at a very nice 9% rate. An expected weighted on base average of 294, which is wretched, in the 20th percentile, and that whiff and K percentage was in the bottom 10th percentile. Half. And, it'd be one thing if it was just those numbers, but oh, by the way, he turned from a below average outfielder into a terrible one last year. Still has that strong arm, but his range outs above average was -5. That's in the 12th percentile. And even with that strong arm, his arm value was well below average as well. And his sprint speed in the 22nd percentile, while it doesn't really matter, I get for base running purposes, but it's indicative of the fact that this guy just can't go get the baseball anymore. Mitch Haniger should have been the designated hitter in the overwhelming majority of the games he played, but they couldn't do that. They had Mitch Garver. We'll get to. We will get to. Yeah, it's just an ugly year. But I will say, if you cut the strikeouts down to a low roar, like if you put this guy at cut the 32% whiff rate to 25, cut the K percentage from 29 to 20, boy, the numbers sure look a lot better. And yes, I understand that that is teal and whatever other color you want to pick for the Mariners glasses. But it's true. It's true. And there are some numbers that suggest that Mitch Haniger had some bad luck last year. We'll get into those now after I figure out exactly how I want to go about saying it. It's a work in progress. All right, let's take a look at some of these splits that suggest that while Mitch Haniger was certainly bad, really bad, he did have some bad luck. A lot of Mariners had bad luck, but perhaps no one more than Mitch Haniger against left-handed pitchers. So for Mitch Haniger's career, and this includes this year, in 907 plate appearances, he is a 259, 331, 451 hitter. That is a 782 OPS. Now, that's not, super elite crushing of left-handed pitching, but it's good. It's good. A 782 OPS is a very solid number. Against right-handers for his career, it's a 767. So it's not like he's this huge reverse split guy, but he's been better against left-handed pitching. Let's take a look at what Mitch Haniger did against left-handed pitching in 2024, right? Well, let's start with righties. 104 games, 278 plate appearances. He hit 225, 313, 380. That's a 693 OPS. It is not good. It is not good. OPS of 693. Batting average on balls in play of 291. That's well below average. But he was basically Barry Bonds compared to what he did against lefties last year. Again, 782 career OPS against left-handed pitching. In 68 games against him this year, he had 145 plate appearances, 135 at bats. He had 24 hits, 1 double, 3 homers, 10 strikeouts. 10 walks. Be great if it was 10 strikeouts. 10 walks, 47 strikeouts. That is a line of 178, 235, 252. That is an OPS of 486. And the big culprit here, look, is it too many strikeouts? Yes. 47 and 135 at bats is way too much. Way too much. But a 247 batting average on balls in play is very, very, very unlucky. And please don't take this as a because we're just reviewing 2024 here. We'll talk a little bit about his future with the team at the end of this video, but we're just talking about what happened in 2024. Man, that's impossible. Especially for a guy who has a career of hitting him pretty darn well. Yeah, it's just, there's no denying how bad Mitch Haniger was, but if you don't at least acknowledge some bad luck, you're being unfair. You don't have to be fair if you don't want to, but you're being unfair. Home and away. Big old difference here, too. 240, 322, 404 in the friendly confines of T-Mobile Park with 9 homers, 29 RBI if you're into that sort of thing, 24 walks, and 77 strikeouts. Away, he was nearly as bad as he was against left-handed pitching. 55 games, 190 plate appearances. That's only 43 less. There is not a huge split difference here. 169, 242, 250 with a batting average on batting average on balls in play. I'm just going to call it BABIP from now on. 215. Yikes. Yikes. And look, I'm not, I keep repeating myself. When you strike out 49 times in 190 plate appearances, you don't get to just say, oh, it was all bad luck. But if a 215 batting average on balls in play is impossible, it's impossible. And a lot of that, yes, is due to some weak contact. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that he just didn't make contact. But boy, that's some bad luck there too. Boy, that's some bad luck. The first half and second half splits are as even as it gets. Now, played more games in the first half, mainly because, you play more games in the first half, but also because the Mariners kind of realized, yeah, this isn't working out. 618 OPS in the first half. It gets better by 0.007 to 625. 8 homers in the first half, 4 homers in the second half. And he was pretty darn consistent in terms of OPS by month, except for September, October, which such a small sample, but awful. 677 OPS in April, March. He actually got off to a pretty good start. Oh, yeah. Another reminder that they listed as April, March, which is stupid on Baseball Reference. Love you guys. Stupid. 570 in May, 601 in June, 646 in July, 670 in August. And then in September, October, when they basically gave up on playing the dude, 185, 267, 185, 452 OPS, 0 extra base hits in the month of September/October. Also interesting here, I don't usually read game outcome for team because, it's everybody's better in wins and everybody's worse in losses, right? But interestingly enough, and he was bad in losses. 183, 238, 333, 572 OPS, 7 homers, 17 RBI. He was pretty darn bad in wins too. 230, 326, 335. Was ineffective off the bench, a 544 OPS as a sub. Batting order stuff. He had a little bit of effectiveness as the 5th hitter, 756 OPS. But he was bad everywhere. He just wasn't good. He just wasn't good. And when you add on the fact that he can't hit, at least based on, I'll acknowledge some bad luck, but not enough bad luck for me to say that Mitch Haniger wasn't deserving of bad numbers. Maybe just not as bad as they should have been. But when you add that in to the fact that he's a bad defensive player, and I believe he's going to be your 2nd highest paid player next year. It might be 3rd. Yeah, it's 3rd. That's a problem. That's a problem for a lot of organizations. For ones that are as frugal, and that's me being extremely nice, as the Seattle Mariners, it's a big problem. And I've thought a lot, and I talked about this with the Mile Y enthusiasts who came to the chat on Monday. We do that every week, $4.99 a month. Really appreciate you considering that. There's a few options for what you can do with Mitch Haniger. Number 1, Mitch Haniger is part of your team. It's not the most ideal. It's not the end-all be-all, which I'll talk about in a second, but it is not the best solution. Number 2 is attaching a prospect and trading his salary. I hate this option. I hated that Jared Kelnick trade as much as any trade the Seattle Mariners have ever made, and I would hate it even more for Mitch Haniger. Well, not more. More is the wrong word. I would hate it because it would basically be like, are you going to do this every year? And you're going to have to attach a really good prospect in order for teams to have an interest in him. a really good one. And you shouldn't do that. You should not give that. Heck, it hurts you long term, not only in terms of prospects, it hurts you financially because you're giving up a guy who can be cost controlled for you. So it's 1 year of $15 million might cost you, no hyperbole, 50 to $100 million long term. So that's not ideal. Attaching a mid-level prospect with him, I wouldn't have a huge problem with, but selling prospects is not a great look. And I just don't think there's going to be enough interest in Mitch Haniger to even get that done without attaching a top 100 guy. And you're not attaching a top 100 overall prospect, is what I'm saying. The third option is to buy him out and to work something out where Mitch Haniger maybe makes a little bit more money long term, but significantly lowers your payroll for 2025. It's not ideal. And it's probably the option I'd be looking at the hardest. Some sort of buyout. Because and it's not about the money for me. I have to acknowledge that because John Stanton's ownership group is, again, frugal, that it plays a factor in it. But it's more about the fact that Mitch Haniger doesn't fit on this roster. He can't hit and he can't field. Why would you want that? Well, there might be one reason. Mitch Haniger is a terrific teammate. Mitch Haniger is a terrific guy for the clubhouse. And there is some value to that. Now, I can't quantify it. And I can certainly tell you this much. While I just said I can't quantify it, I'll tell you this. Mitch Haniger can be the greatest teammate in the world and still hurt you a lot more by being the type of player he was in 2024 on the roster. I don't know if what I just said made any sense, but I'll try that again. There's no financial number that would be low enough to have a player like Mitch Haniger on your roster for 2025. I think I said that wrong again. You know what I'm saying, I hope. Mitch Haniger can be the greatest teammate in the world, but if he's making that kind of money and is that bad, it doesn't matter how good of a teammate he is. Doesn't. But he does provide some value in that regard, which is why I'd like to keep him in the organization, but not on my baseball team. That last couple minutes was a disaster. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very distracted by everything that's going on in life, but I'm also just not very good at this. So yeah, Mitch Haniger, what would you do? What would you do with Mitch Haniger? Very curious. And I'd love you to hit like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Really appreciate the support. Back with Gabe Spire tomorrow. Not great. Can't wait till we get to talk about good players. But let me just end with this. Mitch Haniger, you've been a terrific Seattle Mariner. You've been a consummate, from everyone I've talked to, teammate. It's just too bad that your skill set deteriorated that quickly.